Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, where we bring you the gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of the modern world. Stay tuned. Strange things are happening. Today, we're going to look at the works of Anne Rice and how they pertain to the scriptures, believe it or not. And for those of you who don't know, she's famous for her books about vampires. Take it away.
In the shadows of forgotten myths, creatures of darkness have always lurked. Dragons breathing fire into the eternal night. But one author dared to trace the vampire's lineage to a biblical villain. Anne Rice saw what others missed. She created Amel, the ancient spirit who became the first vampire, a demon who fused with mortal flesh in ancient Egypt. From this darkness came Lestat, the brat prince of vampires, a creature of elegance and eternal hunger. Under the eerie glow of the full moon, these immortals ruled the night, unchanged for centuries. But time, even for immortals, brings change. The Gothic castles gave way to towers of glass and steel, and the vampires adapted, hidden among millions. The hunger remains eternal. The fire of their curse burns as bright as ever. Blood and fire, the twin symbols of Rice's immortals, connecting ancient myth to modern legend. Anne Rice didn't just create vampires. She gave them a history that spans from biblical damnation to contemporary darkness. And in doing so, she proved that some myths never die. They simply evolve.
Yes. The dark origin theory. Did scripture create Lestat? Really, we're talking about Amel, who's the forerunner of Lestat. But Lestat is a more recognizable name from the books by Anne Rice. Interview with a Vampire. Welcome to our channel. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell and enjoy the show. A lot of information packed in here. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. But we speak of the wisdom of God and the mystery, even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the world unto our glory. Amen. Did Anne Rice base her first vampire on a biblical villain? What if the secret to one of literature's most beloved vampires wasn't buried in Gothic folklore, but in the pages of the Bible? Anne Rice gave the spirit that started her entire vampire race a name, Amel. And that name sounds suspiciously close to a notorious biblical villain, Amalek. A coincidence? Or did the modern queen of vampire fiction deliberately tie her creation to one of history's most infamous symbols of evil? Let's look at the evidence and see what we can dig up. For decades, Anne Rice's vampire chronicles have enchanted millions. She transformed vampires from simple monsters into tragic, complex figures on a desperate search for meaning. Rice, a meticulous researcher who pored over religious texts, often described her own writing as a search for God, deeply colored by her own relationship with faith. Her stories are woven with religious and mythological threads, from ancient spirits to Christian cosmology. So, when a name like Amel, the literal source of vampirism, sounds so much like Amalek, the Bible's original archenemy, you have to wonder if there's a connection. Who is Amel? Who is Amel in Anne Rice's world? He wasn't always a vampire. He existed long before them as an ancient, incorporeal spirit that could communicate with witches. Described as mischievous and powerful, he boasted to the witches Maharet and Makare that he could consume human blood, even as a spirit. His real story begins when he gets tangled up with the Egyptian queen Akasha and her husband King Enlil. After conspirators left them for dead, the vengeful spirit Amel fused with the dying queen's body This act created the first vampire. Akasha then shared the dark gift with Enkil, and together they became the first vampire monarchs, those who must be kept. In later books, Rice developed this idea further, revealing Amel as the sacred core, a spiritual center living inside every vampire, connecting them and acting as the source of their power and curse. Amel is, quite literally, the genesis of vampiric predation in Rice's world. Who is Amalek? Now let's flip to his potential namesake in the Hebrew Bible. Amalek is introduced as a grandson of Esau, Jacob's estranged brother, but he's remembered for his descendants, the Amalekites, who became the first and most relentless enemy of the Israelites. After their exodus from Egypt, they infamously attacked the weak and weary at the rear of the Israelite column. For this, they earned a terrible and unique curse. God declared he would have war with Amalek from generation to generation, commanding that the memory of Amalek be blotted out. Over time, Amalek evolved from a historical enemy into an archetype. In Jewish tradition, he became a symbol of pure, irrational evil, a spiritual force that actively works against divine will. The name Amalek doesn't just represent an enemy, it represents the enemy, a symbol of inherent evil that requires a perpetual fight. The connection. So we have Amel, the origin of a supernatural predatory curse, and Amalek, the symbol of endless irrational enmity. The names are strikingly similar, but is it just a phonetic fluke? Anne Rice, an author known for her deep dives into history and religion, never explicitly confirmed a link. The argument for a connection isn't a direct one-to-one, but is built on thematic parallels. Amel's spirit is the source of the bloodlust that passes through every vampire. Amalek became the symbol of an archetypal evil that plagues future generations. Both represent a predatory force that infects generation after generation, but we have to be careful. While the theory is juicy, it's speculative. If Rice wanted a literal vampiric figure from Jewish folklore, she had options. She could have drawn from the Aluka, a leech-like creature mentioned in the Book of Proverbs, or the Estries, shape-shifting female vampires from medieval Jewish texts. The fact that she chose a name so close to Amalek suggests that if there is a connection, it's about symbolic weight, not literal vampirism. It's about branding her creation with the spirit of the ultimate, unending enemy. So, did Anne Rice intentionally base her primordial vampire spirit on a biblical villain? We don't have a smoking gun. There's no interview or note from Rice where she spells it out. But for an author so immersed in religious lore and obsessed with the struggle between good and evil, it feels like more than just a coincidence. The names Amel and Amalek, a fictional spirit and a biblical nemesis, might not be the same entity, but they share a powerful theme. Both are names that became symbols of a predatory, destructive force that echoes through time. Whether it was intentional or not, the parallel adds a fascinating layer of theological weight to Rice's incredible vampire mythology. What do you think? Was this a deliberate choice by Anne Rice, or is it all just a fascinating literary coincidence? Drop your theories in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this investigation, don't forget to like and subscribe for more explorations into the secrets of literature.
Yeah, so I picked this topic. It's actually a series talking about vampires and their origins. Not that that's it's obviously a fictitious thing, but it is and it isn't. So the question becomes, these vampires, they've been, Hollywood has portrayed them kind of over the top, but is there a symbolic essence, an ethos to it? So Anne Rice, I picked her because she's very famous. Her books on vampires have done very well, and a lot of people are familiar with it. So I'm going to use that as a backdrop. So she has a character, Amel, who's like considered the first vampire, and he was a powerful spirit, first mentioned in the novel The Vampire Lestat, and everybody knows Lestat from the movie and the book Interview with a Vampire. He was the essence of vampirism, being the source of their powers as well as their bloodlust, residing in the sacred core. And I think what the question is, the reason I bring it up is because it sounds so much like the biblical description of the arch villain Amalek. And so, who was Amalek? For those of you who don't know, he was a descendant of Esau. So Amalek is a biblical figure, the grandson of Esau and the progenitor of the Amalekites, viewed in Jewish tradition or Hebrew tradition as an archetype of absolute evil. And the name it has several meanings, but one of the meanings of the name Amalek is blood liquor. So you get the bloodlust factor going. And so now you kind of look at Amel, the fictional character, sounds an awful lot like Amalek. And then you see that Amalek means blood liquor. It also means to wring the neck. You start seeing a pattern here. So why is this important? If vampires are not real per se, what we're really looking for is the actual, I guess you would say, their symbolic meaning, their ethos. People who lust after blood. And what does the Bible say blood is? It says the life is in the blood. So they are essentially the people that drain the life out of you. Also, wholly evil, wholly depraved, greedy, just vampiric. We all know what that means when you hear the term vampiric. Just somebody who's totally selfish, self-absorbed, and trying to drain the life out of people around them. Now, I don't mean, like God's people tend to get labeled as such, but that's demonic because that's just, in a sense, Satan projecting. But there's a difference between, being off on your own and convicting people of their sin, vice being the sinner and draining the life force out of people till they're the walking dead. Now, again, I bring this up because there's a scripture in the book of Daniel which talks about in the last days. It talks about the feet of the statue. I think most people know what statue I'm talking about. It's the statue that symbolizes the world empires that exist to this day. The head of gold is Babylon. The shoulders and arms are made of silver, and that would be the Persian Empire. And the body of bronze is the Greco-Macedonian Empire. The legs of iron is the Roman Empire. And notice it's in two legs. Legs are made of two parts, two legs, right? So you would have Rome, and then you would have Constantinople. But then each leg has feet. So you would have the feet, which totally have 10 toes, aligns with the breakup of the Roman Empire that was dissolved. It never went away as a spirit. It never went away. So in the book of Revelations, it says that the beast had 7 heads and 10 horns. And everybody tries to make it into something that is not. If you count all the heads of all the beasts, it adds up to 7 heads. But they're 10 horns. So at the apparent dissolution of the Roman Empire, the final empire, from Daniel, we see it has 10 horns and crowns upon the horns, right? So the 7 heads, but 10 horns. Well, the Roman Empire broke up into 10 tribal nation states that today we have their nations. So those people haven't gone away. So why do we think the Roman Empire is going away? It hasn't. It's just more of a loosely held together confederation. But it says in the days of those kings, that would be the 2 feet, because it says the feet were made of iron mixed with miry clay. Now, the Roman Empire in its initial form was just pure iron, just the strongest. Scripture chose the strongest of metals at the time known. to be the representative of the Roman Empire. It breaks in pieces. Nothing breaks it. It breaks everything else. But the feet are different. That's the Roman Empire in the last days. It's iron mixed with miry clay. And so what you have, the iron is kind of a spiritual connotation. The clay is kind of a human connotation. So what you have is mixed iron and clay, but they don't adhere. So what does that mean? There's been a lot of speculation as to what that means, except Daniel says something, and this is the point I'm trying to get to. I took you in a roundabout way, but here's the point I'm trying to get to. It said, and they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Who is they? And how do they have the ability to mingle themselves with the seed of men? Are they a different group of men? Or is it something else? Is it something that represents or is represented by the iron, whereas the clay is always representative of man? Because man was made of the dust of the earth. We're like clay formations, right? So in the last days, and it says in this empire, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And I can speculate on who they are. And, everybody's got their take on it. But I think what a lot of people who kind of get it, they know that there's something here that is kind of otherworldly. It's not man. It's something that's directing man to his destruction. And man is so bewitched, he's following. But is it all men? Some men see, some men don't, right? So what am I talking about? This vampire thing. We're talking about kind of like soulless men, right? I mean, the bottom line is the Bible talks about them. They call them the serpent seed. And what people don't realize is that all human beings, well, I'm not going to say all, a lot of human beings have what they call Neanderthal DNA in them. And that's, for those of you who are science believers, without question, scientists have said this. And they say human beings have up to, I think, some human beings have up to 3 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Well, what's a Neanderthal? It's not man. It's man, a kind of a man. It's able to procreate with man. Why? Because it has a genetic link to man. And the scriptures tell you what that is. Now, I don't want to go all into who the Nephilim are or what they are. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But if this is the first video of mine that you've watched, you might not understand what I'm saying. But the word is getting out. Nephilim are the sons of God. The sons of God saw human women and said, hey, they're beautiful. And they procreated with human women and they produced hybrids called Nephilim. And if you didn't know, the reason Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, flooded the earth is not because man was evil. Yeah, man was evil, but he was being dominated and overrun by this other thing, this other entity created by the fallen angels. And those angels are called watchers, right? So these hybrids were more powerful than Yah's creation, and they started to displace them on the earth. And it describes them. They were voracious. Their appetites, they couldn't get enough. They ate all the animals. And then when they ran out of animals, they started eating humans. And then when the humans started hiding and running, they started devouring each other, cannibalism. But basically, their spirit is to deplete out of pure selfishness. They were depleting all the resources on the planet. Now, if you look around, there are people like that. And they may not be giants, because they say the Nephilims were giants. But Nephilim, if you understand the story, they're genetic offspring, because the flood wiped them out, but their genes, remember, they had procreated with humans. so that their genes, the genetics, still survived in humans. So the 8 people who survived the flood, somebody or some of them still had that Nephilim gene in them. And so it pops out every so often. So you start hearing stories of the Rephaim and the Anakim, giants. Not giants like their forefathers or their forebearers, but they appeared now as very large men, like Goliath and his 4 brothers. There was 5 of them. And that's why David picked up 5 stones out of the brook. Most people miss that. He picked up 5 stones, exactly 5 stones, right? 1 for Goliath, and the next 4 were going to be for his brothers. He was going to take them all out. And that's a lot of faith there, right? But that's the spirit of Yah. That is your weapon. So anyway, but the Rephaim were, the children of Israel were mandated to hunt them down and destroy them, right? But the children of Israel were also mandated to destroy Amalek, for various reasons. But, we can talk about what they might be. I know we've talked about the story of how they ambushed Israel as they were coming out of Egypt. But I think there's something more to it. Because the same mandate that he gave Israel to wipe out the Amalek, he also gave them to wipe out the Rephaim, right? And so they didn't completely do that. And so the story of Saul, where he ends up buddying up with Agag, the king of the Amalekites, they disobeyed in that. And by disobeying in that, the ultimate thing ends up happening. Ultimately, the beast empires come about. And we won't go into that here. That'll be another video. But the beast empires are literally controlled by the fallen ones, and the beast empires turn on Israel. They basically set their sights on Israel and destroy them, right? And then they set up the beast empires that would rule throughout history after that, from that point on. They still rule today. You might not call it the Roman Empire, but it's the same people doing the same things. In fact, mimicking a lot of what came out of Rome. And I won't get into that. I don't want to get into trouble, but you know what I'm talking about. It's still the same thing, right? And the Roman Empire is admired in the West. They just can't get enough of that, right? They and the Greeks. And the Romans and the Greeks are both Kittimites, descendants of Japheth, right? But they're not, but they're ruled by the children of Edom, Esau's people. And I can go into that. I'll do a video on that to show how the first king of Rome was an Edomite, and his name was Zepho, right? So they keep claiming that the origins of Rome are not really known. No, it's being hidden. A lot of stuff gets hidden because they don't want you to know their ancient history. Because if you know the ancient history, then you know the curses that are upon them and also the blessings. The children of Esau were blessed in the art of war, and everything they gained would be through war. And we'll talk about that in another video again. But let's get back to this. So this Rephaim, or the genetic descendants of the Nephilim, still were around at the time of David. But remember, as they started losing power, as they started getting destroyed, by not only Israelites, everybody recognized, hey, these are the descendants of the giants, or they're exhibiting the genetic makeup of the giants. If we allow them to continue, then they'll overrun the earth again. And Yah was not going to let that happen. So everybody was kind of, when you saw a giant, it was just a thing. Everybody went after him until their numbers got very small. Anyway, their only means of survival, once they couldn't, everybody was on to them. The only thing they could do at that point is to hide themselves not just physically, but genetically. So what you see now is the Rephaim are not as big as the Nephilim, but as Rephaim started procreating again with regular men or women, because they just appeared to be like really large men, their genes are now mixing more with humans. So eventually the Rephaim start to appear human. And that's on purpose. Yet they still are the spiritual and physical descendants of the Nephilim, the sons of the fallen. Anyway, my point is that when Daniel says, "And they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men," that's already happened. It's already happening around the world. It's, it's so mingled now you won't know it, except that they started learning how DNA operates, and they start matter-of-factly recording stuff. And they realize that, hey, there's a large percentage of Neanderthal DNA. And Neanderthals are talked about also, like in terms of in Mount Seir when Esau drove them out, but he also procreated with them. And they were called the Horites. And if you go to a Bible dictionary, it'll probably tell you that the Horites were troglodytes. They were cavemen. And they dwelt under the mountains just to avoid sunlight. And there's a reason they were avoiding sunlight, And I mean, we could see the parallels here, but it was more about I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to get in trouble, but they lived in caves, and Esau took possession of the land and drove them out, but also procreated with them. And then you get, obviously, one of them being very hybrid, Amalek. And Amalek, of all the sons of Esau, is the one that is most animalistic. He's most caveman, if you will. So Amalek, he's like the ultimate in the serpent seed, right? And the fact that he wasn't ultimately wiped out was Israel's fault. They were given that mandate because Yah knew in the end they would come back because they have a perpetual hatred for Israel, the actual descendants of Jacob, and they would come back and destroy them, which they did. So that's a lot. That's a mouthful there. I know we're talking about vampires, but I'm trying to tell you that the vampire myth has some truth to it. Not all the over the top stuff. Just like Vlad the Impaler wasn't actually a guy with fangs, coming out at night, biting people in the neck. But he did have a certain level of bloodlust. He loved the sight of blood. And that makes me think of Esau, who loved to hunt. Many speculate Esau loved the sight of blood, And his descendants are called Edom. And what does Edom literally mean? It means red. So you can read in the Bible, every time you see the word red, you should think of Esau and his descendants, like the dragon, the dragon that wanted in the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ, the last book of the New Testament, it says that the dragon was red. And as the woman was in labor, about to give birth, the dragon waited for the child to be born so he could devour it. Well, that's symbolic of Herod. And if you didn't know, Herod is an Idumean, which is Greek for Edomite, the descendant of Esau. Go figure. So start paying attention to Esau in the Bible, because his fate lines up perfectly with the fate of the last beast, the Roman beast. And I say that for a reason, so just read it carefully in those contexts. Anyway, so when Daniel says, "And they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men," that means They're still trying to hide. That's how they've survived, and that's also how they've worked their way into the halls of power. They hide themselves. They are hidden, and the bloodline mingles amongst themselves. So take that for what you will. But I'm telling you, and I'm definitely doing a video on this, is that all isn't what it seems to be, right? And I'll probably link back to this video in the when I do the video on who are these people, basically. You know, you've heard the term reptilians. Well, that's over the top. I get it. You know, some people love that one, but there's a grain of truth there. There's a grain of truth when they say the Neanderthal, for instance, became extinct. No, they didn't. They became spliced in with human genetics through interbreeding, through intermarriage. And now, just like any gene, sometimes it pops up and they exhibit more Neanderthal behavior. And there are groups of people who have been separated, which is why Yah said that, you know, the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, told Israel, don't marry these foreign women, because he understood that they were infected. Now, he also understood that it would happen. He was just trying to buy time so that Israel could accomplish certain things before, you know, it started, you know, falling off the cliff. So, for the most part, everybody's mixed up now. You know, some more than others, and that genetic marker of Neanderthal is among us, right? And so we'll leave that there, but it's just fascinating stuff, and I think we should be more cognizant of what's actually going on in this
Can I
world.
prove Anne Rice's Amel is actually based on the biblical Amalek? Anne Rice's vampire chronicles have captivated audiences for decades, with Lestat being one of the most intriguing characters. His complex personality and rich backstory have made him a fan favorite. But have you ever wondered what inspired Rice to create this iconic character? Today, we're going to explore a surprising potential biblical link that might just change the way you see Lestat forever. Lestat, the brat prince, is often seen as a rebellious, Byronic hero with an aristocratic background. His transformation into a vampire and his subsequent rise to power in the vampire world have been well documented. However, there's a challenge to this conventional understanding, a startling theory that his name and nature might echo the biblical Amalek. This ancient enemy of the Israelites is described as relentless and associated with evil. Could there be more to Lestat's name than just a French aristocratic surname? The linguistic connection between Amel and Amalek is intriguing. The root of Amalek is Amal, which means to be bare or to be naked. In the context of Rice's vampire lore, Amel could signify a kind of spiritual bareness or vulnerability. The biblical Amalek is characterized by its relentless pursuit of evil, and Lestat's early vampiric nature was marked by a similar ruthless determination. As the primary antagonist in Rice's early vampire novels, Lestat's role in the vampire world mirrors the adversarial relationship between Amalek and the Israelites. The biblical Amalek is often seen as a symbol of evil, and Lestat's struggle with his own darkness is a central theme in Rice's novels. Lestat's complexity and inner turmoil could be seen as a reflection of the Amalekite spirit. Furthermore, Rice's works often explore the blurred lines between good and evil, and Lestat's character embodies this moral ambiguity. His struggles with his own nature and the consequences of his actions are a testament to the enduring power of the Amalekite archetype. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for this connection comes from Rice's own writing. In her novels, she often explores the symbolic significance of names and their connections to character traits. A close reading of her texts reveals a web of subtle references to biblical themes and motifs. While Rice herself never explicitly states the connection, a deeper analysis of her work suggests that Amel might be more than just a coincidental name. In conclusion, the proposed connection between Anne Rice's Amel and the biblical Amalek adds a deeper, darker layer to our understanding of Lestat and Rice's universe. While speculative, this theory offers a fascinating lens through which to view her work, highlighting the richness and complexity of her vampire lore. This new perspective invites us to re-examine Lestat's character and the world he inhabits. So, what do you think? Do you see the connection between Lestat and Amalek, or do you have other ideas about Rice's inspiration? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe for more literary explorations.
Well, family, I'm going to say farewell, and I love you all so much. Thank you so much for continually supporting my content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they'd find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you, and I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention, and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. And may everybody have a beautiful and blessed day using the body of Messiah, Yahushua, HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I'll see you all in the next video. Shalom. And make sure you stop by our bookstore. It's great for the kids. Got coloring books for the
Bible
kids.
Lions Coloring Book for Kids, Volume 2. Available August 15, 2025 on Amazon. The Bible Lions Coloring Book for Children. Color 30 fun designs of inspirational verses and Christian artwork. A beautiful children's coloring book designed to fill your child's mind with the positive words of God's love. The Bible Lions Coloring Book for Kids was designed to be a fun, yet effective way to help children calm their tension. Hand-lettered quotes and adorable hand-designed illustrations will inspire your child as they reflect on God's promises.